Kim Minji moved quietly through the expensive hotel room, cleaning each surface with care. The clock on the wall showed it was almost midnight. She had been working at the Millennium Tower Hotel for 3 years now, always taking the night shift because it paid more money. She needed every extra dollar to help her younger brother Minho finish his engineering degree at Seoul National University. Minji was 26 years old, but looked younger. Her black hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she wore the hotel's plain grey uniform. Most people who saw her cleaning rooms never looked twice. They did not know that she spent her free time studying languages on her old laptop computer. She could speak Korean, English, Dutch, Swedish, German, French, and Arabic. Learning languages was her secret passion, something she did late at night after work when everyone else was sleeping. The penthouse suite she was cleaning belonged to Lee Do-hyun, one of the richest men in South Korea. He was 32 years old and owned a huge technology company. His company made special computers that could talk to aliens from space. 5 years ago, aliens called the Proxima Coalition had visited Earth for the first time. They wanted to trade with humans and share technology, but they were very picky about how humans talked to them. Do-hyun walked back and forth near the big windows that showed the bright lights of Seoul at night. He looked angry and stressed. He was talking into a small device that looked like a silver phone. This device was supposed to translate human languages into alien languages, but tonight it was not working properly. Minji tried not to listen, but she could hear him speaking loudly. First he spoke in Korean, then he tried to speak in Swedish. She could tell right away that he was making mistakes. His Swedish grammar was all wrong, and he was using the wrong words for business talks. Mansitio. Translation device made strange beeping sounds, and then went quiet. Do-hyun hit it with his hand and said bad words in Korean. He tried calling the aliens again, but the device would not work. Minji knew she should not get involved. Hotel maids were supposed to be invisible. They should clean quietly and never bother the guests. But she could see that Do-hyun was having a very important conversation about space trade deals. If the translation was wrong, it could cause big problems between humans and aliens. She stopped cleaning and listened more carefully. Do-hyun was trying to talk about trade agreements and technology sharing, but his Swedish was so bad that he was accidentally saying rude things. He was using formal words in the wrong way, and he kept mixing up past tense and present tense. The aliens would think he was being disrespectful. Minji looked at the door. She could leave right now and pretend she heard nothing. That would be the safe thing to do. But she thought about all the people on Earth who could benefit from good relationships with the aliens. New technology could help cure diseases, solve hunger, and make life better for everyone. She took a deep breath and spoke up in perfect Swedish. Her voice was quiet but clear. She said that Do-hyun was using the wrong verb forms for ongoing business negotiations. She explained that he should use present continuous tense, not past tense when talking about current trade deals. Do-hyun stopped talking and turned around to stare at her. His eyes were wide with surprise. He had never heard his hotel maid speak any language except Korean before, and her Swedish was much better than his. Minji felt her face turn red. She realized what she had just done. She had interrupted one of the most powerful men in Korea while he was having an important business call. She could lose her job. Worse, she could get in trouble for listening to private conversations. But Do-hyun did not look angry. He looked amazed. He walked over to her and asked in Korean how she knew Swedish so well. Minji explained that she studied languages in her free time. She said she was sorry for interrupting, but she could hear that the translation problems were making the aliens confused and upset. Do-hyun picked up his translation device and tried calling the aliens again. This time he repeated the Swedish phrases that Minji had taught him. The device worked perfectly, and he could hear the alien voices responding in a much friendlier way than before. The conversation lasted for another 30 minutes. Several times Do-hyun looked at Minji with questions in his eyes. She nodded or shook her head to let him know if his pronunciation was correct. A few times she whispered better words for him to use. When the call finally ended, Do-hyun sat down in his expensive leather chair and looked at Minji for a long time. He asked her how many languages she could speak. When she told him 7, he asked why she was working as a hotel maid instead of as a translator or diplomat. Minji explained about her family situation. Her parents had died in a car accident when she was 21. She had to take care of her younger brother and pay for his education. Hotel work paid enough money to cover their rent and food, but not enough for her to go to university full-time. She studied languages online because it was free, and she could do it at night. Do-hyun nodded slowly. He said he had an idea that might change both of their lives and maybe even change the future of humanity's relationship with the aliens. 3 days after the night in the hotel, Minji found herself sitting in the biggest office building she had ever seen. The elevator had taken her up 50 floors to reach Lee Do-hyun's company headquarters. Everything around her was made of glass and metal, and she could see the whole city of Seoul spread out below through the huge windows. Minji felt nervous in her new business suit. Do-hyun had sent someone to buy it for her because he said her hotel uniform would not be appropriate for this meeting. The suit was dark blue and fit her perfectly, but she still felt like she was pretending to be someone else. Park Jun-ho sat behind a curved desk that looked like something from a science fiction movie. He was Do-hyun's closest advisor and had worked with him for 10 years. Jun-ho was looking at information about Minji on a computer screen that floated in the air like a hologram. The technology still amazed Minji, even though she knew such things had become common in big companies. Jun-ho read from the floating screen in a serious voice. He told Do-hyun that Minji had taught herself 7 languages using free internet courses. She had scored perfectly on online tests about alien cultures and space politics. Most surprising of all, the Proxima Coalition aliens had specifically asked about her after looking at files about all the people who worked in Seoul hotels. Do-hyun leaned back in his chair and nodded slowly. He had suspected something like this. Might be true, but hearing it confirmed still shocked him. The aliens were not just visiting Earth to trade technology. They were studying human society very carefully, watching how humans treated each other. Minji listened to their conversation with growing amazement. She had thought the meeting 3 nights ago was just a lucky accident. She never imagined that. Aliens from space had been watching her work at the hotel. The idea seemed impossible, but the proof was right there on Jun-ho's computer screen. Do-hyun explained his theory to both Minji and Jun-ho. He said the aliens were testing humanity in a very clever way. They were not just checking if humans had good technology or smart scientists. They wanted to see if humans could recognize talented people even when those people had ordinary jobs or came from poor families. Minji understood what this meant. For years she had felt invisible while cleaning hotel rooms. Rich guests walked past her like she was furniture. They never thought that the quiet maid might be smart or have special skills. But somehow, the aliens had noticed her when the humans around her had not. Jun-ho pulled up more information on his floating screen. He showed them reports that the Proxima Coalition had been sending to their home planets. The aliens had been watching Earth for much longer than anyone knew. They had cameras and listening devices in hotels, restaurants, hospitals, and factories all around the world. The reports said the aliens were impressed by how hard human workers tried to do good jobs even when they were not paid very much. They were also impressed by people like Minji, who studied and learned new things in their free time, even when no one encouraged them or helped them. But the aliens were worried about something else. They saw that many humans with good ideas and special abilities were stuck in low-paying jobs. These people never got chances to use their talents because they came from the wrong families or went to the wrong schools. Minji felt tears in her eyes as she listened. This described her life exactly. She had always dreamed of working as a translator or diplomat, helping people from different countries understand each other. But she needed money to take care of her brother, so she had to work at the hotel instead of going to university. Do-hyun stood up and walked to the big window. He looked out at the city and spoke in a quiet voice. He said the aliens had given humanity a test without telling them about it. The test was simple, but important. Could humans find and help talented people no matter what jobs they had or where they came from? So far, most human governments and companies were failing this test. They kept promoting the same types of people who had always been in charge. They ignored workers like Minji, even when those workers had exactly the skills that were needed. Junho asked what would happen if humanity kept failing the test. Do-hyun turned around with a serious expression. He said the aliens might decide that humans were not ready to join the galactic community. They might take their technology and leave. Earth alone for another 100 years. Minji realized that this meeting was about much more than just her personal future. The decisions made in this room could affect every person on Earth. She felt scared but also excited. For the first time in her life, someone was asking for her opinion about something really important. Do-hyun sat down across from Minji and looked directly at her. He said he wanted to offer her a job as his chief language advisor. She would help him communicate with the aliens and maybe travel to their space stations. But first, he needed to know if she was ready to help change how humanity treated all of its people, not just the rich and famous ones. Minji thought about her brother, who was still in university. She thought about her old job cleaning hotel rooms. Then she thought about all the other people like her, working hard jobs while dreaming of better opportunities. She looked at Do-hyun and Junho and said yes. 6 months after the meeting in Do-hyun's office, Minji found herself floating in a space station near Saturn's moon Titan. She still could not believe this was real. The space station was bigger than any building she had ever seen on Earth, with rooms made of crystal that sparkled like diamonds. Through the clear walls, she could see Saturn's rings spinning slowly in the black space. The most important meeting in human history was about to begin. Representatives from 12 different alien species had come to decide if humans were ready to join their galactic community. If the meeting went well, Earth would receive amazing new technology that could solve problems like hunger, disease, and pollution. If it went badly, the aliens might leave Earth alone for many more years. Minji stood next to Do-hyun in the main negotiation room. She wore a simple black dress that made her feel more confident than her old hotel uniform. Around the huge crystal table sat beings that looked nothing like humans. Some had blue skin and 4 arms. Others looked like walking trees with glowing leaves. A few appeared to be made of living metal that changed shape as they moved. The leader of the meeting was called Current Bearer. This alien looked like a tall human covered in scales that changed color when it spoke. Its voice came through speakers in the walls, translated into perfect Korean and English. Current Bearer had been watching Earth for many years and knew more about human society than most humans did. Current Bearer announced that all 12 alien species had to agree before they would share their technology with Earth. But there was a problem. The aliens were worried about how humans treated each other, especially how rich humans treated poor humans. Ambassador Yang Soo-min represented Earth's government in the meeting. She was 50 years old and had been a diplomat for 20 years. She wore an expensive suit and spoke in the formal way that diplomats always used. But Minji could see that Ambassador Yang was nervous. Her hands shook slightly as she held her papers. For 6 months, these meetings had been going nowhere. Every time the humans thought they had made progress, the aliens would ask uncomfortable questions about poverty, inequality, and wasted human potential. The aliens seemed more interested in how humans treated hotel workers and factory employees than in how humans built spaceships or computers. Current Bearer's scales turned dark red as it spoke about the problems it had observed. The alien said that humans had great potential, but they wasted too much of it. Talented people were stuck in boring jobs because they were born into poor families. Smart children could not go to good schools because their parents did not have enough money. Workers with good ideas were ignored because their bosses thought only university graduates could be intelligent. Ambassador Yang tried to defend humanity. She talked about democracy and human rights and economic progress. But her words sounded empty in the crystal room. The aliens had been watching Earth with their advanced technology. They knew the truth about how human society really worked. Other alien representatives began to speak. A blue-skinned being with 4 arms said its species had made the same mistakes thousands of years ago. They had almost destroyed themselves in wars between rich and poor before they learned to value all their people equally. A tree-like alien said its species only survived because they discovered that wisdom could come from any individual, not just the ones in charge. The metal alien that kept changing shape said something that made Minji's heart beat faster. It said, that humans reminded it of its own species long ago, before they evolved beyond social classes. The metal alien had been watching Minji specifically, studying how she had taught herself languages while working as a hotel maid. It was impressed but also sad that humanity had almost wasted her abilities. Current Bearer's scales turned bright. Yellow, which Minji had learned, meant the alien was about to make an important announcement. The alien leader said that one human in the room gave it hope for humanity's future. This human had risen from a humble job to become a key advisor in space negotiations, proving that talent existed everywhere in human society. Everyone in the room looked at Minji. She felt her face turn red, but she knew this was her moment to speak. Ambassador Yang had been failing for 6 months because she represented the old way of thinking. Minji represented something new. Minji stepped forward and asked if she could address the concerns in the traditional manner. She had spent months learning alien diplomatic customs. She knew that each species had different ways of showing respect and making important points. Current Bearer's scales turned bright green, which meant approval and curiosity. The alien leader invited Minji to speak for humanity. Minji took a deep breath and began to talk, not in English or Korean, but in a mixture of the languages she had learned. She spoke some words in Swedish to show respect for careful planning. She used Arabic phrases to discuss philosophy and fairness. She mixed in Dutch expressions about cooperation and German words about efficiency and progress. But more importantly, she spoke from her heart about what it meant to be human. She talked about her own life, working night shifts to support her family while dreaming of bigger things. She described meeting other workers who had amazing skills, but no opportunities to use them. The aliens leaned forward, their various eyes and sensors focused on every word she said. Current Bearer's colorful scales began to shimmer and change like a rainbow. The alien leader stood up from the crystal table, and its tall form seemed to glow with an inner light. All the other aliens in the room became very quiet. Even the metal alien stopped changing shape. Minji could feel that something very important was about to happen. The alien leader began to speak, in a voice that was both sad and hopeful. Current Bearer explained that for hundreds of years, the Proxima Coalition had been watching different planets and species. They had seen the same pattern happen over and over again. A species would become very smart and build amazing technology. They would create spaceships and computers and weapons, but they would still treat some of their own people badly. The walls of the crystal room suddenly filled with moving pictures, but these were not the pictures that humans usually showed to aliens. There were no images of shiny cities or impressive space rockets. Instead, the pictures showed ordinary places on Earth where regular people worked every day. Minji saw hotels just like the one where she used to work. She saw night shift workers cleaning floors and washing dishes. The pictures showed hospitals where cleaning staff worked alongside doctors. There were images of factories where assembly line workers built complicated machines. There were farms where people picked crops under the hot sun, but the pictures were special because they showed what the aliens had been watching. Next to each worker, floating text appeared that listed their hidden talents and dreams. The hotel cleaner who spoke 4 languages, the factory worker who had invented a better way to build car engines but never told anyone because he thought no one would listen. The hospital janitor, who understood medicine better than some doctors because she had been studying medical books for 20 years. Current Bearer pointed at these images and explained what they meant. The alien said that every successful space-traveling species had to learn one important lesson. Real intelligence and ability were spread throughout their entire population, not just concentrated in the people who had money or power. The alien leader's scales turned bright blue as it continued speaking. Current Bearer said that civilizations that ignored their working people always failed in the end. Sometimes they destroyed themselves in wars between the rich and poor. Sometimes they became so focused on maintaining power that they stopped innovating and fell behind other species. Either way, they never became truly great. Minji looked around the room and saw that the human diplomats were starting to understand. Ambassador Yang had a shocked expression on her face. She was realizing that all her formal diplomatic training had been missing the point. The aliens did not care about trade agreements or military treaties. They cared about whether humans were wise enough to recognize talent wherever it appeared. Do-hyun felt like someone had turned on a bright light in his mind. For 6 months, he had been trying to impress the aliens with humanity's technology and achievements. He had brought scientists and engineers and business leaders to these meetings. But the aliens had been more interested in learning about hotel maids and factory workers. Current Bearer's scales turned golden yellow as it spoke directly about Minji. The alien leader said that Kim Minji represented exactly what the coalition was looking for in a space-traveling partner. She had extraordinary abilities, but she came from ordinary circumstances. She had worked hard to develop her talents even when no one encouraged her or helped her. Most importantly, she understood what it felt like to be overlooked and undervalued. The alien explained that species who joined the galactic community had to be ready to cooperate with many different types of beings. Some alien species looked frightening, but were actually very peaceful. Others seemed weak but possessed incredible mental powers. A species that judged others only by their appearance or social status would never be able to work well with such diversity. Another alien, the one that looked like a walking tree, began to speak. Its voice sounded like wind blowing through leaves. This alien said that its own species had almost become extinct because they had ignored the wisdom of their smallest and quietest members. Only when they learned to listen to everyone did they discover the knowledge that saved their planet. The metal alien that kept changing shape added its own story. It said that individual aliens in its species did not have fixed bodies or social positions. Any member of their society could become a leader or a scientist or an artist, depending on what was needed. This flexibility had made them one of the strongest civilizations in the galaxy. Current Bearer looked directly at all the human representatives in the room. The alien leader's scales began flashing different colors as it delivered the most important message of the meeting. It said that the coalition had not just been testing humanity's technology. They had been testing something much more important: humanity's wisdom and fairness. The alien explained that they had been watching how humans treated their hotel workers, their hospital staff, their teachers, and their farmers. They had been looking for signs that humanity could recognize and develop the potential in all its people, not just the ones who were already rich and powerful. Current Bearer's scales turned deep purple as it announced the final challenge. The alien leader said that if humanity wanted to join the galactic community, it would have to prove that it had learned this lesson. The coalition would share their technology, but only with a human civilization that was ready to value and develop every person's potential. The room became completely silent. Everyone knew that the future of Earth depended on what happened next. 1 year had passed since the historic meeting on Titan Station, and the world had changed in ways that nobody could have imagined. Minji sat in her new office, which floated in space between Earth and Mars. Through the clear walls, she could see 17 different space stations where humans were now living and working alongside aliens from the Proxima Coalition. Minji was no longer the hotel maid who cleaned rooms at night. She now held the title of Director of Human Development for the Interstellar Council. Every morning she read reports about humans who were doing amazing things throughout the galaxy, but these were not the same types of humans who had been famous before first contact with the aliens. Her computer screen showed updates from the 17 human colonies. In the Alpha Station near Jupiter, a woman who used to clean office buildings had discovered a new way to grow food in space. On the research station orbiting Mars, a man who had driven a taxi for 15 years was now leading a team of scientists studying alien biology. At the mining colony in the asteroid belt, a former hotel cook had invented a machine that could turn space rocks into building materials. These stories made Minji smile, but they also made her think about how much had changed. Before the aliens came, most of these talented people would have spent their whole lives in jobs that never used their real abilities. Now they were helping humanity explore the stars. Do-hyun entered her office, carrying a thick folder of papers. He had changed too over the past year. He was no longer just a rich businessman trying to make deals with aliens. Now he worked as Deputy Director of Human Colonial Affairs, helping to coordinate the amazing growth of human civilization throughout the galaxy. Do-hyun sat down and opened his folder. He told Minji about the latest statistics from Earth. Educational. Opportunities had increased by 340% globally. This meant that millions of people who could never afford to go to university before were now getting the chance to study advanced subjects. But the numbers only told part of the story. Do-hyun explained how the whole system of education and employment had been revolutionized. Companies and governments were no longer just hiring people based on their university degrees or family connections. Instead, they were using new alien technology to identify people with special talents, no matter what jobs they currently had. The aliens had shared testing methods that could discover hidden abilities in anyone. These tests did not care if someone was rich or poor, young or old, or what country they came from. The tests only measured actual intelligence, creativity, problem-solving skills, and the ability to work well with others. Minji remembered her own experience with these tests. The results had shown that she had exceptional language learning abilities, advanced pattern recognition skills, and high emotional intelligence. These were exactly the qualities needed for interstellar diplomacy. But before the alien tests, no human employer had ever recognized these talents in her. Do-hyun continued reading from his reports. He told her about Park Sun-ho, who had been a janitor at a university for 20 years. The alien tests revealed that he understood advanced physics better than most professors. He was now working on a team that was designing faster-than-light communication systems. There was also the story of Lee Yuna, who had worked as a cashier in a grocery store while raising 3 children alone. The test showed that she had incredible abilities for organizing complex systems and managing resources. She was now helping to plan supply chains for the human colonies spread across the solar system. Most amazing of all was Kim Jae-min, who had been a street sweeper in Seoul. He had taught himself mathematics by reading textbooks he found in the trash. The alien tests revealed that he was actually a genius at solving equations that even supercomputers found difficult. He was now working directly with alien scientists to understand the mathematics behind their advanced technology. Minji felt proud as she listened to these stories, but she also felt a deep sadness. She thought about all the people throughout human history who had lived and died without ever getting the chance to use their real talents. How many potential scientists had spent their lives as farmers? How many brilliant inventors had worked in factories without anyone knowing what they could accomplish? Do-hyun seemed to read her thoughts. He reminded her that they could not change the past, but they could make sure that the future would be different. The partnership with the Proxima Coalition had given humanity more than just advanced technology. It had given them a new way of thinking about human potential. The alien tests were now being used in every school on Earth. Children were being identified for their unique talents at an early age, regardless of their family's economic situation. Scholarships and educational opportunities were being distributed based on ability rather than wealth. For the first time in human history, every person had a real chance to develop their full potential. Minji looked out at the stars and thought about her brother, Minho. He had graduated from engineering school and was now working on the design team for humanity's first interstellar spaceship. But more importantly, he was engaged to marry Choi Hana, a brilliant young woman who had been discovered working as a waitress. The alien tests had revealed that she was a mathematical prodigy, and she was now studying to become an astrophysicist. Current Bearer's prediction had come true. Humanity had learned to recognize and develop talent throughout its entire population, and this had made them worthy partners in the galactic community. The future was brighter than anyone had ever imagined possible.